Okay, so these are the switches widely used on Isuzu transmissions and transfer cases. They are used for reverse lights, they are used for neutral switches, and they are used for the four-wheel drive indicators, both on the shift on the fly and the normal manual shift transfer cases. They are a ball switch. So basically how this works, this switch would be bolted into the housing, and as long as the notch on the shifter rail, this slides back and forth, does not align with the ball on the end here, the switch would be either on or off depending on the kind of switch it is, but it changes state depending on whether the ball is depressed or not. This is a spring-loaded ball. And keep in mind and be careful, because there are two kinds of these switches. They are identical on the outside. The only way to tell them apart is to use a multimeter. Some are normally open, meaning that in this state there is no continuity between the two leads. The other kind is normally closed, meaning that there would be continuity between these two leads until the ball is depressed. Once the ball is depressed, there's an open circuit there. Now, these are very prone to have this happen, be it from the harness dangling around and wiggling and just breaking over time. You can see this one is not fully broken off, but you can see that it's very deteriorated. Now, these are not impossible to find, but they're not the easiest to find. And when they break off, people usually replace them. And I'm going to show you an easy way to recondition them, get them back to working just fine. All you need is a little time, some creativity, and some solder. Now, as you can see, the wire just comes out from this epoxy or whatever this stuff is here. But the connection, the actual connection, is down in here. Now, I on some of these have just scraped out a little bit to where I can get to copper and resolder on some leads, but that usually doesn't work the best. What you want to do is get down to the original solder points and solder new cable on right from the root. Now, there are several ways you could do this. You could take this and just start cutting layers off until you get down deep enough to where you see the original solder joint, and then dig out the epoxy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill and dig out the epoxy from up here until I get down to where I can solder it. That way I can refill this up with epoxy when I'm done and have it look pretty much original. I have done it the other way, where you just kind of knock off the top part here, but then it doesn't really look that nice, and I want to keep this looking as good as I can. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill and dig this out with a rotary tool. I'm sorry, I'm going to use a drill bit to do it. The set I got does not come with the burr that would be satisfactory for this, so I'm going to use what I have, which is drill bit. I'm not sure how deep down the contacts are. It's been a while since I did one of these, so I'm just going to start kind of slow and work my way down so as to not drill down into the switch part itself. So I'm not really sure, but it looks like we're getting down to close to the joint. Okay, so now we're very close to where we need to be. You can see solder there. I'm going to switch to a finer point tool, clean that a little bit more before I take out the soldering iron and start soldering. Now I switched to this burr, which I don't think is going to work very well for this. This is actually made for ceramic or glass, I believe, but we'll give it a try. Well, that actually worked better than I thought it would. Not sure how well you can see there, but there are some blobs of solder there, which are the original solder points for the wire. There's mangled up wire there because obviously we ground it up when put the drill bit in there. But I'm gonna see if I can get some heat on there and clean that out. So I took some time to dig it out a little bit better off camera, and the contrast here doesn't make it that easy to see. But this right here is an original solder joint, and this is the other one. It'll be far easier to see once it's melted and there's fresh solder on there. Okay, I got that cleaned out quite a bit better. Got me fresh solder on there. I'm switching to a little bit larger soldering iron. The one I was using was a little small, hard to get enough heat quickly. So what I am going to use to replace the leads, this is just some, what is this, 16 or 18 gauge wire. Right now it's just a loop. You could resolder on your original leads, but for now, for ease of handling, I just made a loop. I will clip it here later and add the appropriate terminals. And remember, you can use single color. This is just a switch, so there's no polarity. So color is not an issue. There's no need to use different colors for the different leads. So this did not turn out as well as I expected. The wires did get a little deformed and stiff from the heat, but it will suffice. I am going to mix up epoxy and fill that in. I think the best option for this would actually be a good quality hot glue, but I don't have any, so I'm just going to use epoxy. Kind of squish it in there, make sure it fills up the space. Bend the wires over this way. So this is the end result, and that is how you can recuperate a reverse, neutral, or four-wheel drive switch for an Isuzu for practically nothing in materials and a little of your time. Again, I think good quality hot glue would be a better solution for this than epoxy, but that will do. And I will later splice on, crimp on I mean, the correct terminals.